Hello, welcome to another episode of Pilots React. Unfortunately, my co-captain Ben cannot make it today. We're on different sides of the world, and sometimes our scheduling doesn't really work out well. And we felt it was both. We both felt it was important to get this video out because of what just happened with the UPS flight. It was tragic, and I think the information is good to get out right now. I have a compelling argument about what I believe may have happened, and I'll display that information, and you guys let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree, and we'll go from there. But on November 4th, UPS Airline MD-11 crashed, flight number 2976, right after takeoff in Kentucky. The plane was going to Honolulu, had 3 crew members, and obviously we've all seen a lot of the video out there. So we'll go through this. I compiled most of it, so you guys can take a look. Here you can see that the left wing is on. This is such a tragic event. My heart goes out to the UPS family as well. Yeah, terrible explosion. The other parts, other videos that I've got on social media in different places.
Ay, pinga. Ay, Dios mío. Pero qué pinga es. Vamos a ver. Papi, cuidado. Espérate. Ay, Dios mío, señor.
Yeah, just terrible. So the plane had a lot of gas. It was going from Kentucky to Honolulu, so pretty much topped off. Here's another video. You can see it taking off from the side, and some of these videos are quite revealing. They show, in my opinion, what was most likely happening. I've only seen a couple of people discussing some information that I think is relevant to why they were unable to take off. Here's a very good video. It's quite revealing in that you see the nose going down right there. We'll analyze that in a little bit as well. And here is where they came in contact with a building and then just crashed. Absolutely terrible. You can see them rolling over to the left. You can see the engines already separated. And at this point, you know, they have no control of the airplane. They're just along for the ride. And there aren't many accident chains out there that show that the pilots really have nothing. They really can't control the outcome of this event. This is definitely one of those tragic accidents where the pilots couldn't do anything. And we'll get into the reasons why shortly. So much fuel, there's so much speed. They're doing about 150 knots when all of this happened at the end of the runway. It's just really tragic. Yeah. I don't want to keep seeing all these pictures. It's kind of disturbing for me, at least personally, to see this. I think for most people out there, it's disturbing. So let's start the discussion here. Obviously, we all know they lost an engine, right? We've all seen the pictures of them losing an engine. It was sitting on the, if I'm not mistaken, right there. It was sitting on the side of the runway. So that's literally the engine detached itself from the airplane. So what can cause this? So you have just a few things that can cause an engine detaching itself. On the MD-11, they have a high vibe warning light. So if you have a fan that's out of sync, you know, a high compressor fan or a turbine disc failure, it's very possible that it can shear itself off the airplane. So this airplane has CF6-80 engines, and there's been at least a few 4, 5, 6 cases in the history of this engine where it does have a high pressure turbine disc failure. That can happen. As well, that's the other option is, here's another concept here, is here are the pylons. It could have easily fell off the pylon and disconnected itself. For those who are tech savvy and want to check out that diagram, that's a possibility too. So in the history of this airplane, you have a few different accidents. The most recent one was this one. It was the final report for American Airlines Flight 191 in 1979. The pylon assembly pretty much separated from the wing. So that was generally a maintenance function. The contributing factors you can read later down there: inadequate supervision, inspection failed, all that stuff. So the engine separated itself. And on that accident, unfortunately, you can actually see, this is one of the last few photos right before impact, that the engine was gone. They lost control. In that situation, a few things happened afterwards. They had slats that retracted. So they stopped that process, the slats retracting on automatically, hydraulically. They stopped that, and it should have helped later on, further other situations. But in this case, it did not. That was the aftermath of that. Also, what's interesting in this accident is that the airplane, you can see the airplane on fire. The wing itself is on fire after V1. So here you can see right there, the wings on fire. So with the MD-11, you have shutoff valves. They usually control fuel and hydraulics, but unfortunately, they're only operated by manually when you pull the levers during an engine failure or an engine fire. That's not going to happen here. I'll give you a quick little scenario of what happens. So let's say you're going down the runway, you hit V1, and then all of a sudden all the bells go off: engine failure or engine fire, high fan vibration. We're all trained not to do anything. Get it to V1, get it to VR, rotate, and then bring the airplane up, and then slowly climb and take the airplane off, and then handle the situation. Aviate first. So in this scenario, you got V1, and by the time, sometimes it takes a while, by the time it gets with a heavy airplane going to Honolulu, it will take a while to get to VR. And so they're sitting there waiting, but they can't abort the takeoff anymore because they've already used up most of the runway. And so now they're going. To get to VR, 10, 15 seconds, maybe, a lot of runway being used. And they got to VR, they rotate, and they're still not going to secure that airplane. They're still not going to secure the engine. They're not going to shut the shutoff valve. So what you see in this unfortunate video is you see that the wing is on fire. Why? Because the fuel valves are still going on. Their fuel valves are still sitting there open, and hydraulics are still flowing onto that left wing. So even if they did everything perfectly correct and try to get back around and it still worked, the structural integrity of that wing is massively compromised. So that is somewhat of an issue. So I want to take you through another possibility here. Here's a Concorde, Air France flight 4590, and what came out of this was that the ingestion, if you look at the cause of the engine number 1 surge, the ingestion of very hot gases, unburned kerosene, disturbed the intake airflow. So Ben and I just did a video a little while ago on the the AA American Airlines 1665 flight out of Vegas, where they're having compressor stalls. And I'm going to play that for you right now. This is part of the video that we did last time.
The compressor stall.
And here in the video, you can see what is commonly referred to as backfiring. So I'll add the link later on to that video. But pretty much what that means is that if you see that or hear that, that means that the airplane's backfiring, which means that you're getting a compressor stall. Okay. So now let's look at this video. And this is exactly what happened. If you look really closely, bam, really closely right there, you can see, bam, there's a fire. That tail engine right there is backfiring. So very interesting that now if you look at this right here, this is in a rotation phase. So they're starting to rotate. And if that left engine's gone, right there, that left engine is gone, you can see that fire is over the wing and almost directly in the path of that tail engine, right? So let's look at this for a second. That's a full rotation. And if you just line up the right over the slats, right over that wing is where the tail engine's ingesting air flow from. So they're going to have FOD, possibly foreign object damage. So if you had a rotor burst or a high pressure fan destroyed, you might get FOD into that back engine. But we definitely can see on that video, there's no doubt on that video, and thankfully somebody brought this up on social media as well. Somebody said, hey, check this out, and then pause that video and you can see it backfiring. Here they try to rotate. You can see, look at that. You can see the fire right over the wing there. You can see the fire right there. And then look, you can see the nose come down as well, like they're trying to get off. So it's pretty obvious to me that this day was a terrible day. They obviously had engine number one separate. Then on a heavy airplane trying to take off with a compressor stall on number two on the tail engine. That means you only have one engine that's producing power, thrust enough to get that heavy airplane off that runway, and they're past V1, which means they can't abort anyway. The crew was doomed here. There's really no way that they could have survived. And even let's say the tail didn't backfire and have a compressor stall, even if they didn't have that, the structural integrity of that wing on fire until they shut the fuel shutoff valves would have deteriorated regardless. So condolences and my heart goes out to the crew and the UPS family. This was one of those tragic accidents where the crew was just in there for the ride. Now, also something to note, the aircraft recently had a substantial heavy check, which means it goes into a long maintenance procedure. And it was in San Antonio on the ground from September 3rd to 18th of October. That's a long time for maintenance to be done. However, it did have 28 flights after it was released from maintenance. So whether or not the maintenance has something to do with it, we do not know. However, generally, a lot of if they're removing an engine, putting an engine back, bolting down the pylons, it could have definitely had an effect on this. Also, just a little note, the airplane was delayed, and there are different reports anywhere from 41 minutes to 2 hours prior to this departure as well. So that I'm sure the NTSB is looking into that as well. All right, thank you. Please comment, let me know what you guys think about that analysis. But I think the crew was damned from the beginning here just because of that compressor stall and the tail engine. They might have had a chance if it didn't happen, but yeah, unfortunate. Take care. Till next time. Thank you very much. Bye.